And so one of the reasons to adapt Oresteia was to try and make it self-sufficient for a modern audience, and to try and be able to tell this story, which is basically the story of a family and the family members having to make terrible, difficult decisions, act by act, in response to what's gone before. And it's probably not too much of a spoiler to say the way we tell the story, it begins with a father deciding whether he should kill one of his children. And you watch the way that that decision echoes down the generations and sort of gradually cracks apart the family that you meet at the beginning.
It's this kind of, you know, huge sort of family drama, which is sort of as much about love as it is about tragedy and about death and about grief and about what would you do in these situations where one would hope would never find themselves. I mean, it's nearly 2,500 years old, this trilogy of plays, and Rob has kind of amalgamated the three plays and also written a sort of first act, which you don't normally get to see.
We tell Oresteia in 4 parts, not in 3 parts. And the reason for that is that an audience in classical Athens would have been so familiar with the bit of the story that we tell in the first part that they wouldn't have needed really to be told it. Greek tragedies in classical Athens were performed in 3s, and so all the Greek tragedies that survive are one of the 3. The Oresteia is the only one, is the only complete 3. And there was something about the completeness of Oresteia that really appealed to me, because I thought, okay, well, we've got a good shot of being able to really understand this thing without having to account for 2/3 of it being unavailable.
I guess thematically, all of these things are still within our world. Justice, revenge, vindication, balance. These are like big human themes that I don't think will ever be irrelevant, because that's at the heart of humanity. These questions of how do we face justice? How do we get justice? I would say that's more relevant now than ever, but the reality is it's always been relevant. We've always been searching for justice. We've always been trying to figure out how to balance things, our feelings and our impulses, with the consequences of those. For me, the question of the prophetic and determinism are things that I think the play kind of talks about. It's also about family and grief, but I think the hinges of some of the ideas and the arguments in the play are around choice and what choice we have, and the expectation, but also the responsibility we have in those choices, and whether we ever have a choice. And that's kind of, for me, one of the big questions of the play is, can we ever change the choices that we will make? Can we ever change the choices that we have made?
I think hopefully it kind of, you know, we take every audience member on a journey, and through that story, a person who's never seen Greek tragedy or any play before in their life should come and see it and have an amazing, mind-blowing experience, I think.
There's also a real pleasure, I think, in looking at something very, very old and trying to understand what looking at that teaches us, both about it but also about ourselves.